All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Carvel Office Hours. Just a reminder to please read and abide by our code of conduct when attending these meetings. We do record these meetings and add them to our YouTube playlist. We meet every second and fourth Thursday of the month at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're watching this from home, we do encourage you to come to our next meeting. If you're not able to meet for our office hours, we also have our Carvel community meetings, and we meet every Monday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Today's date is May 13th, 2021. If you are attending this meeting live, please input your name and the organization that you work for, or if it's just for personal reasons that you're using Carvel, put that in the agenda. Office hours are broken down into discussion topics and open questions and help needed. So first up, we have some discussion topics from Joao, one of the Carvel maintainers. And I will kick it on over to him to discuss the first discussion topic. Joao, do you want to share your screen?
I can do that. All right. Let's see if I can find it. I think this is the one. All right. Can you all see and HackMD? Yes, cool. All right. So so let's take a look at our agenda today. So our agenda has two topics, as Nancy said. The first one, we're going to go through what a proposal that we did about the triaging of issues, of our GitHub issues, a little bit about like there was some thought put into it, and we added this to a document that we had prior that contained like what we would do while triaging the issues. So we're first going to take a look at that. Then I'd like to have some discussion about the proposal for image package to copy with rename, discuss a little bit about maybe the pros and cons of an approach, of strategy approach, and another one like the one that we proposed in this one here, and then eventually talk about and decide if we want to postpone the overrides for it. So let's get into it, because we do have some questions for the second half. So very, very briefly, so this is a document that where we try to delineate what it looks, what it makes, what are we doing while we're triaging the proposals. And there's some changes to this document. And the major change is around the triaging process itself. What should happen when you're triaging an issue. So the flow that is being proposed here is for the issues is that like somebody will create an issue, right? And that will get two labels. One is Carvel triage and another is enhancement, because this is going to be a feature. We have in a little bit down, we have like a bug triage, and what we do things a little bit differently. But so the first step is being done by someone that is an approver for the particular tool or the reviewer for that tool. And we're going to, previously we had a community pair that was responsible for triaging these issues and moving them forward or not. But we are thinking about maybe this should be done by someone that is more into the tool, that is working more nearer the tool. So the idea is that the approver or a reviewer would be first read this issue and try to understand it. And if there is information that is missing or it's not 100% clear, they should reply to this issue and say like to ask for more information. And an important part here is that the approver or the reviewer that started this discussion should be the one that keeps on tabs on this particular issue. So we don't have like multiple people replying and having to gain context on it. So this is like something, it's a big change from what we had before. If the approver or the reviewer understands like this as being like a good improvement, something that we want to have in our tool, then basically, and it has enough context, if the issue doesn't have enough context, the approver / reviewer will add the context so that it contains like all the information on the issue. And it will change the label from remove the Carvel triage label, change it to Carvel accepted, and moves the issue to the Carvel accepted swim lane. So what I'm talking about is, so if we go to our Zen Hub, we do have this swim lane here, the Carvel accepted. So the stories should be moved in here to this swim lane and changed it to be Carvel accepted. And we'll see why next. If it's not a good fit for the tool, then the approver or reviewer should close the issue and have some information explaining why this doesn't make sense for the tool. In another situation here is that if the reviewer / approver thinks that there is no need to add like acceptance criteria, or there is something that it's very self-explanatory, then the issue should be removed, the label Carvel triage, and Carvel accepted should be added, but it should be moved, the issue should be moved into the unprioritized backlog swim lane. So an example of that is, for example, like this issue, where it was kind of self-explanatory that we just wanted to make sure that an executable flag was kept into the file. So we don't need to create like a lot of acceptance criteria for this. So we are okay just moving them into ready to be picked up. So if the feature is a bug, then it should change the label from enhancement to bug. So this is like the first step, and it's all on the approver reviewer step. So what does our community pair is going to do on their day-to-day or something, or every other day to every other day work? They should come through the Carvel accepted swim lane. So now instead of being asked to triage the bugs, they should go through this swim lane, and this swim lane should have like enough information for this community pair to create some acceptance criteria. And they should try to create the acceptance criteria that is needed for this story to be done by someone. And then it should tag whoever approved this Carvel accepted, tag them and say like, does this look like a good acceptance criteria? And also make sure that the person that created the issue also is aware of this, and make sure that the acceptance criteria makes sense for this full process. And if it gets a thumbs up, then it should be moved into to our unprioritized backlog. And last, our BLT, or product plus approver. BLT is our balanced leadership team. They meet once a week to try to prioritize all the work that we do. Or the product people plus an approver will get together and try to decide if there is something on the unprioritized backlog that should be moved into the prioritized backlog for us to pick up next week or in the weeks to come. So this is more or less like the change on the process for feature triage. For the bug triage is a little bit different because what happens is that, oh, this is wrong. I copy pasted this clearly. But the community pair is going to be responsible for trying to replicate the issue. So the issue should have enough information for it to be replicated. And the idea here is that we add another label, that can be replicated. And that information should be enough to see like, does this have enough information for us to proceed with the bug or not. And then if there's not enough information, then it should follow up with the person that opened the issue to try to understand if it makes sense, like if it can, they can provide more information so that it can be picked up later. Afterwards, the approver or reviewer would if the bug was not touched by the community pair, then an approver or a reviewer can do this like this, the same part as above. And if the issue already has a can be replicated label, then if it is a real problem, then it should change the Carvel triage from, should remove the label Carvel triage and add the Carvel accepted to it, and move this issue into the unprioritized backlog. If the scenario is not going to be solved, it should reply with the reason why it's not going to be fixed and close it. And if this scenario is it's not a bug, then it should be moved. It should be changed the label to enhancement, and we assume that it is not a bug and it's something that we want to do, then it should be changed. Our Carvel triage should be changed to Carvel accepted, and it should be moved into the Carvel accepted swim lane, and it will be picked up by the community pair on the rest of the triage for the features. And then once again, the BLT or the product plus approvers would check in these issues and will prioritize them when it makes sense. So like this is somewhat of a change from the process that we had before, where basically the community pair would be responsible for triaging all the issues to accept them or not, even if they did not have like a lot of context on the tool and so on. So like this is our proposal. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it, but this was something that we would like to eventually try if everybody's okay with that, and see if it works, or if it is more helpful and can make us go forward quicker than we were doing before.
I have a question, or more like clarification. So I think the trend is that only approvers or reviewers can decide whether an issue will be done or not.
So the idea, so the answer, the quick answer is yes. And why is that? In theory, the approvers and the reviewers are the people that are working more actively on a tool and have an idea what is the idea for this tool, how the tool should evolve. So they are the people that are best positioned to make decisions about should this be something that should be part of this tool or not. Of course, and also they have like a bigger advantage that the time that they will take to triage these issues is going to be much smaller than someone that doesn't have like the full context of this. So we're trying to also piggyback here on the knowledge of the people that have more knowledge on this, on the tools, to make this work faster than it was before, because before you had to build like all this context and so on.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So I had a question about the community role. It seems like, given that the community pair would enter into this certain swim lane and try to add acceptance criteria or try to replicate a bug, that this wouldn't need to be allocated as often. Do you think that like maybe this change in strategy would maybe put more responsibility on the approvers and reviewers than it does the other engineers who worked on the community pair?
Yeah, that is somewhat of the idea. The idea is to lessen the burden of the people that are doing community, and to eventually even reduce the time that we are using right now to triage all these issues, right? So there's a proposal for us to shorten the need for this community pair to be maybe eventually like twice a week. We would allocate people just twice a week to if there is need for it. So like if there are things that need to be added acceptance criteria to it or bugs that need to be triaged, maybe just have this pair work on community issues like maybe twice a week. For example, like Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that, the triage day, the tea day, right? But that's something that we're discussing still, but yes.
Okay.
I'm excited to give this a try. This seems like, you know, it's going to address some of the issues that we've had so far, and it's cool.
Yeah,
I'm a
I'm all
little
about
curious.
sorry. I'm all about experimenting. I like this idea.
I'm a little curious about kapp. Do we have multiple reviewers or approvers in certain tools? Are there only tools that only have one person in at that level? Are we concerned about that at all?
A lot. So we need to ramp up, because it's not only to fulfill the needs of these of like this new process, but also because sometimes we need people that help out with particular issues, or if we need, for example, like in today's meeting, we're going to talk a little bit about kapp, and there's no one in here right now that has like a reviewer or approval position on that tool, so we don't have like the full context. So I think we need to we are hiring right now because we don't have enough headcount to be to have like reviewers and approvers in all the tools, but by default Dimitri will help us out if we need to. But yes, we'll be relying a lot on Dimitri, but we need to ramp other people up in different tools. And we have a problem currently on the tools that we're not very that they are not like our biggest priority, that are kapp and kbuild. So we don't have I do think that I am a reviewer on kbuild, but I don't think we have a reviewer on kapp.
Can I interrupt here for a second? I have something on the agenda, but I have to leave, so I'll probably be catching up on the recording later. And it's just, I wanted to clarify, the issue I wanted to be talked about is on kapp, and it's the issue 77 on the GitHub repo.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say.
77, you said?
Yes.
Make resources annotations more resilient.
Exactly.
All right. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. I'll catch up on the recording. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Cool. Anything else on the GitHub triage proposal? Cool. Okay, so let's try to give it a try and see if we can organize maybe starting next week or something to see if we can bootstrap this this process and see how it looks like in reality. Because in paper it looks fine, but we'll see how it looks like. All right, Nancy. It is the top of the hour right now. So shall we go into the other questions first?
We can continue on with the other discussion item and then get to kapp and Tekton. You did mention, Joel, about no one on the call being an approver for kapp. Is everyone familiar enough to answer or discuss what the community member brought up for number 77 for kapp?
So this is the issue, the one that I'm sharing right now.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think I am, but I don't know if anyone is in this
Because I can
All right,
get Dimitri to see if he can join us.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
In the meantime, we can start on the other discussion item, and then I'll ping him.
Okay. Sounds good. Like if in the end, if we cannot get Dimitri, this is something that we can raise and we can check it out maybe tomorrow during stand up and see if there's if this is something, because if this is impacting people right now, this is something that we need to look into. So we might prioritize this to eventually maybe start this work or something maybe next week, if that's something that's very high priority as well.
Okay, sounds
And,
good.
and since it was Dimitri that opened this issue, I do believe that this is inherently has the approval, but we now need to build up some acceptance criteria on it. Eli, do I know that you're there? Do you have any idea about something about this issue?
No, I don't.
No. Okay, cool. So if Dimitri joins us, we can talk a little bit about it. Okay. So the other topic that I have here, it is about the image package copy with rename proposal. It's been open for some time. To be fair, I didn't had a lot of space in my my to-do list to push this forward sooner, but I think that at this point we have two issues that we need to talk about. One is how the strategy definition would look like, and another one is, are we okay or not to do not have overrides out of the bat and eventually maybe build them later, but not as like something that is required to get this feature out. So I think those are like the two major, the bigger issues that we have here to talk about. Okay.
Hey,
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 shall we go
Dimitri.
to the cap for question then?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. So we had someone, Charandas here on the call, and he wanted to know about this issue number 77 of kapp. Kapp and Tekton working together. And the issue is created by you. And I think Jorge also opened an issue on Tekton about it. Do you remember what this is about?
let me give it a read real quick. But directly with the user. When Tekton controller replaces metadata annotations, kapp no longer believes that this resource is being directly managed by the user. It still tracks it, but as a cluster created resource. So that if some controller does copy over annotations from other resources, well, you will still detect true identity of the. Oh yes, I think so this issue was related to, so if a user has, so I think Tekton has this interesting behavior that it copies over annotations from one resource to another. And so if you have two resources inside, inside your configuration file that you're sending to kapp, then Tekton, so kapp will annotate them appropriately, both of them. And then Tekton will copy those annotations onto one, onto the second resource. And so if actually that makes kapp lose track that, hey, look, this resource is no longer being kind of managed by the system. It loses ownership, and I guess it considers that this resource has been created through the cluster means rather than created by kapp. So there's some, I guess, vagueness in there in terms of what actually should be the behavior, because it's kind of fighting the Tekton is doing one thing, kapp is doing another thing, who actually owns this annotation thing. And there's a few different solutions in there. None of them are that exciting, to be honest, but they're available. Was there any specific question about this issue?
So the person who joined us wanted to know if we are going to do this because they might be impacted by this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would be, I mean, the first stage for this issue would be to figure out what to actually do. And then the next stage would be to figure out who does it, right? Whether it's maybe opportunity for anybody to contribute the proposed change, or whether it would be the core contributors contributing this. But yeah, I think, you know, we're always interested in enhancing the tool. But for this one, I think given the complexity, it might require at least a lightweight proposal, or maybe a list of options for what can be done here.
Okay, so maybe what we can do about this is see maybe tomorrow morning to see if anyone is interested in giving a go on this. If not, if we have a hard time getting people, maybe can we rely on you, Dimitri, to help us out and try to like understand this a little bit better and also get more a little bit deeper into the options that exist, so we can create like a proposal and move forward this issue?
Sure, yeah, we can probably we can start by maybe writing down maybe what are the options as the issue comment. So happy, you know, ping me on Slack whenever.
Okay, sounds good. So TLDR, we did not forget about you. We are going to try to get a little bit more color around this issue, try to understand a little bit what are the options, and then if you are interested in contributing code into this issue, in particular issue or any other issue, we are always happy to get contributions. So feel free to open PRs against our repos. Cool. Anybody has anything else about this issue?
Actually, one thing that somebody should take a look at is, does this issue still happen? Because I do see that even though a Tekton issue was closed, there was a few other issues related to it that are still open, like precedence, order for labels, and annotations. So it would be interesting to see what's happening in the upstream. Not saying that, you know, this is interior general problem that could happen anywhere, but this is maybe specifically for Tekton. This may be something that gets fixed actually in Tekton itself.
Okay, sounds good. Like this PR strangely looks like the things there, but we would have to read it. Okay, sounds good. All right. Okay, so it looks like, oh, thank you so much, whoever added the notes there. So I think we don't have yet another question. So let's maybe go back then to our proposal for the image package copy with rename. So maybe let's start with like the bottom one. I don't know. Let's start from the top and we'll see. So basically, there was a proposal for us to change the way we are going to provide our strategies. And if we look at the proposal, it's going to take a little bit to open here. But the way we were proposing our strategies to work was that you'd have a name, you'd have a strategy name, and that strategy name would be somewhat of like a big name, but it would be descriptive, trying to explain what each strategy was going to do. So for example, there was like single repository on it that would copy everything into a single repository. And then there was relative to registry keep namespace. So each strategy had a name that would explain what that strategy was doing. So we have another proposal of way to do strategies, and that was having knobs that allow the the person that is creating this configuration file to define, to have like a more generic strategy. For example, we want all the copy to be done relative to the bundle. And then you'd be able to say, okay, I want to keep a namespace, or I want to keep the image, or I want to keep the repository, or I want to have the namespace dashed, or something like that. So two different approaches. They have, I think, like pros and cons on both of them. And I'd like to see what do y'all think about these two options?
I remember vaguely what we had before in the proposal. It was many, or I think 3 different strategies. Does this sort of new strategy where they're separate kind of map to, I think, the same end state as what we had before in just a different way? Or is there a fundamental difference here?
Oh, there are more things now that can be done with like this new proposal, where previously we had, I think, 4 strategies on it, and basically the strategies would do some of the things. So for example, like everything is copied to the same repository, or copy all OCI images to a new registry, but maintain the original repository, right? So this could be done by turning some of these knobs. For example, I want to keep the image name or the namespace, and I want to put everything, all the images relative to the bundle. So let's imagine that the bundle is in registry.io/my/bundle. So all the images would be placed in registry.io/my/ and then if you said you want to keep the namespace, you'd keep like the namespace and you'd create from there. So some of the strategies will be able to, that we defined in the beginning, like on the proposal, would be able to be done with these knobs that we have here.
That makes sense. I don't remember seeing dashed before. Is that one new?
Yes, this one is new. It would be, you would be able to kebab. Is it kebab or is it the one with underscores? I forgot what the name is. So one of the two, but that's like that's a new thing. Yes.
So are there combinations of what you can supply to keep and dashed that would make this config an invalid config? What would it mean to keep namespace and dashed namespace?
So for example, let's imagine, so I'm just gonna go here and write something. Maybe this is, so let's imagine that we have reg.io/my/image, or my team 1 image, right? So the namespace for this particular image is this piece here. So this is namespace equals to that. Okay, so if we did keep namespace and dashed namespace, we would copy everything to so for example, let's say that our bundle is inside some, this is our bundle, right? So everything, that one image would be placed in some my or if you just say keep the namespace, let's assume that you say, oh, I want to keep the namespace. So let me just move this up here so I don't have to copy it all over again. So if you wanted to, if you say just keep namespace as a configuration, you do, it would look something like this. And I assume that there would be like another one that instead of being like relative to the bundle, it would be like relative to the registry. So in that case, if you'd have like a strategy that is, for example, relative to registry, then these two configurations here would become something like that. And something like that. Let's put. So it doesn't, so it looks like it moves, right?
Yeah. So I guess I'm a little confused of why you would keep strategy as a field and also have keep and dashed. Seems like all that strategy is telling you is where we're going to be relative to.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I see something that instead of strategy, it's like relative to as the key, and then you could have bundle, repository, similar to how you have namespace, image, and repository. But maybe there's a subset of options in strategy that could be relative to instead.
Oh my God. Like that. And something like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an idea. Because I find the strategy key a little bit confusing, that I've defined like relative to bundle as my strategy, and then I'm also defining bits of my strategy and keep and dash.
Yeah, I don't like, I don't see, I don't see why not. I like it like instead of having like a because in the end it kind of loses the idea of the strategy in itself. So it could be just one more knob that we add here.
Yeah, and I find like the second configuration is actually more different than the original configuration that had like all these different strategies that encoded information. Now we're kind of exposing all that information in these three different keys. Right.
Yeah, I do feel that this is going to make it a little bit harder. Like the major problem that I see with having like all these knobs here from now on is that every time that you want to do something, it's going to make it harder, right? Because now you have like a lot of other possibilities. And to be fair, like I was thinking about this, and our current default behavior is that we copy all the images into the same repository, right? I'm trying to think like how would the default case look like, right? Because we don't want to keep the namespace nor the image nor the repository, so we wouldn't have this. We wouldn't want to dash anything. Eventually, does even the relative make sense? I don't know.
Wouldn't default just be keeping the repository relative to the registry? Isn't that? Oh, I guess you're keeping the repository of the original image ref, not of the bundle ref.
No, the default is you copy everything into the bundle repository.
Right.
That's the
right.
default, right? So
Yeah,
I think the way would have to be like this, right? Like this would be the default. There is no really other way to do it.
Does it mean anything to just say like relative to bundle? Like to have the relative key in isolation?
Like that.
Would that then preserve the original name and just put it onto the bundle?
In theory, no, because we do not say, in order for us to keep the name, we'd have to do something like this, right? Keep image, right? So this would be, I want you to copy all the images into the same namespace the bundle exists in, and I want you to keep the names of those images.
So it doesn't really mean anything to have relative without keep.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Like, I think that this key here requires the one of these two to be present, because it means that we want to keep something from the original image. So, but at the same time, we do have, so for example, like a configuration like this, where let's assume that we have, let's say like bundle, we have no keep. Would this make any sense? So something like that. Or even no, repository. So maybe these two, like, so like if we had something like this, what should happen?
Right, it doesn't make any sense.
Right, so. And to be fair, like having just namespace to be kept. So like, even if we say, instead of this, if we say keep here, if we say keep namespace, what would be the name that we would give to the image?
Yeah, you wouldn't have one.
Its name would become whatever the last path in your namespace would be. Right? So like you'd have my team one and image was the name.
This would copy it to.
Yeah. Then paths of the bundle or whatever. Right. If it's relative to bundle, wouldn't its namespace begin at where the bundle
You're right.
was also?
You're right. Okay, so we were assuming that the bundle is in some bundle, right? So it would be something like here.
But that would be confusing Yeah, I don't know. Like if you were copying multiple images from like multiple SHAs from that same image repository, they would be copied into same place but with different SHAs, just under a different image name.
Yeah, so what you're saying
Not-
is that something like image 1, SHA-1, SHA-0, right? This would be
Mhm.
SHA-0, and this would be SHA-1, right?
That's not awful.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at this and I'm tempted to maybe assume that if you have like namespace, that you can have image or repository. I don't think it makes, like, to be fair, like this thing, I'm not sure if it is very helpful for the problems that we're trying to solve. Because like one of the problems that we're trying to solve is to allow people to more easily understand what are the images that they are running in their clusters, for example, and having them like this or having everything inside the bundle repository. I don't know if it's helpful. So I would be tempted to, on the keep side, just allow you to keep the image name or the full repository, not the namespace.
So the namespace and the image together make the repository.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, like
Cool.
this is the namespace here, the part that I have selected, and then this one part is the name, the image,
Image.
and all this is a repository. Okay, cool. I'd like to move on because like I'd like to try to see if anyone is opposed to not doing overrides to start off. And then maybe you can try to come up with like some scenarios and stuff like that to see how this, like these configurations will look like for like different options and see if they make sense to have the strategies open like that instead of being just a name. Sounds good. Cool. So about this part, what we're talking about is let's view this as a full document. So the proposal that I'm doing there is, since we are going to have much more specific strategies or strategies that are like knobs like this, no, this one, can we get rid of the overrides? So instead of having like the possibility of you having like one off, I want just is this one image to be copied to that one place, you can set a strategy and have all the images copied in the same way to the destination. Or do y'all think there are like use cases where overrides are something that we want to allow?
Does the behavior of overrides in any way affect the behavior of strategies? Like is override week something we can just wait and see if we get feedback from people about and then just do strategies initially? Or does scoping strategies somehow, is scoping strategies somehow affected by overrides?
I don't think so. Like, I think it is like a wise first step for us to just give people strategies in some way, and then see if people you want to have overrides. And I think we talked the last time that eventually maybe the only override that we really need is this one here, the mapping function YTT Starlark, where you would just say, okay, you create a function that would do the overrides for you, and that instead of having to have like this override section at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense to just wait and see if overrides are something folks need.
Are we all
One
good with
question I
that
have-
approach? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one question I have is, like, as an image package user, would someone who is just learning image package want to use these strategies for copying? Like, is this a beginner level feature, or is this something that we see more advanced users taking advantage of?
I think this is for more advanced users and for more specific use cases. I don't see this as like something that you'd have to do. So this is going to be a file that is going to be optional, that if you do not provide it, image package will still copy it. It's still copy the same way it does today. So you don't need to have this. But if you want to do something special on when you're copying and you want to have more control, you have like this advanced option that you can do things with.
Okay. As well as I think that, like, a new user wanted a more human readable copy output, this would be a great way to provide it for them. So I think like a simple way without overrides might actually be helpful to a new user who doesn't want to get confused with SHAs and wants to see, oh, I copied this image. Well, there's the image name. I just have to do a visual scan. Yeah, I agree with what you guys were discussing earlier.
Cool. All right, so we have consensus, looks like. So I will update the proposal to highlight the fact that we are, at least for now, not going to do overrides. I do believe that, let me just check if we split the overrides into a different section or not. So the first MVP would not have a strategy, so it was already thought like that. And the second MVP would include strategies. Maybe we can hold off on this second MVP, and then we have the third and final MVP that would be the Starlark portion that we can maybe switch around if we want to, or decide later in a later stage if you want phase 2 and phase 3 or just phase 3. All right, we are at time. Nancy, thank you all for helping me out with this proposal. Nancy, do you want to close us off?
Sure thing. So thank you for joining today's office hours, and Charandas, if you're watching this from home, thank you for your question regarding CAP and Tekton. Please reach out to us in the Kubernetes Slack workspace in the Carvel channel so we can continue the discussion and get more details to work further on that issue, as we're really interested in getting that all ironed out. The next time we'll meet for office hours is Thursday, May 27th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So please feel free to join us then, or join us next Monday, as we meet every Monday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time for our community meetings. And yeah, thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day.